Hello friend! If you've been following so far from our first and second block video, you should now have one block that is single crochet and one block that is double crochet. Here are completed blocks so far. Now I'm going to show you some differences here in the fabric, which you might have already noticed. The single crochet block is a denser fabric, so it's a little bit shorter in width than the double crochet block. So you can see the fabric difference here. There's lots of little holes in this one, and this one is a lot more pliable. So if you've noticed this, don't worry. Everything is fine. It'll all work out in the end. So today we're going to work on our block 3, which is going to combine lessons we've learned in block 1 and block 2. So we're going to start out with our bulky weight yarn. We're going to pull out some yarn here and leave ourselves a nice little tail while we create a slip knot. So go ahead and create your slip knot, slide in your hook, tighten down, and now we're ready to start casting on. Go ahead and cast on 20 stitches, and I'll meet you there at the end. Alright, we've cast on 20 stitches. This is what our chain looks like now. You should have something that looks very similar. We're going to go ahead and cast on 2 more stitches, and this is going to be the height of a double crochet. So this is going to give us enough height to start that second row. So in our third chain from the hook, we're going to yarn over and create a double crochet. Place your double crochet. Now, in our second stitch that we're going to create, in that very next chain, we're going to insert a single crochet. And this is what it looks like. So we have that tall stitch, the short stitch, in the next chain. In our next stitch, we're going to place a double crochet. Then in our next stitch, we're going to place a single. So this is why it's called the up and down. So we're going to place a double, then a single, and a double and a single. So we're going to alternate doubles and singles all the way down that entire chain for our first row. So go ahead and continue alternating double crochets and single crochets until you reach the end. Now we've reached the end, and I have ended on a single crochet. You should have 2 if you cast on the same number of stitches as I did. This is what we have so far. Let's go ahead and count our stitches, double check that we have 20 and we haven't missed one. Alternating stitches can get a little tricky to keep track of, so it's always a good idea to count. So for our row number 2, we're going to go ahead and turn our work, and you can either chain 2, which is what I'm demonstrating right now. So you can either chain 2 or you can use our handy dandy little trick we learned in our double crochet video where we do a standing double crochet. So I'm going to pull up a loop, tall as a double crochet, and then wrap it, insert the hook in the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. So now I've created my double crochet. So in this row, we started with a single crochet, placing a double in that single, and now we're going to place a single in the double crochet that's next. The next stitch is going to be a single, so we're going to place a double crochet in that single stitch. And then the next one is going to be a double crochet, so we're going to place a single crochet in there. So as you're working down this row, take note of the stitch that you're placing the new stitch into. Is it a double? Is it a single? If it's a double, place a single crochet. If it's a single crochet, place a double crochet. This is going to keep your fabric nice and even, and it's going to create that beautiful texture that we're looking for. So here we are coming to the end of this row, and I'm going to give you an idea of what it looks like. So this is what you should have so far. Notice that our beautiful fabric is starting to form. And even though we're using stitches that we've already created, we've already learned, you can see how different this fabric looks than what we've already created. So go ahead and turn your work and find your stitches here. So I'm going to give you a little cute little way to figure out what stitch you need to do next. So we know this is a stitch here, and you see how that little bump is right there and it's very short. That's a single crochet. Then our next stitch, you see how it's tall. That's our double crochet. Then we look at our next stitch, we see that little bump, single, next stitch is double, next stitch is single, next stitch is double. So if you're working and you get lost and you can't figure out, oh my goodness, do I do a single or a double next? Take a look at your stitch. If it's short, just like this one, then you're going to place a double crochet. So I'm going to go ahead and do a standing double crochet in this first stitch here, since it is a single crochet stitch. And then in my next stitch, I'm going to place a single. Now once you determine your first stitch, it should just be alternating all the way down. So you shouldn't have to do too much guesswork as to what stitch you need to do next. Sometimes those single crochet stitches can be a little bit shorter, so you might end up accidentally missing a single crochet, but that's okay. Just slow down and pay attention to where your stitches are in the row. Make sure you're getting each and every stitch, and always count your stitches at the end. If you're and you're not confident at all about, oh my goodness, like this is too much alternating, this is too much switching, I'm getting lost, count your stitches and you'll be fine. So we're going to keep alternating here, placing doubles and singles as needed. And I'm going to continue working down this row, making sure I get every one of those stitches. So now we're nearing the end. I'm going to go ahead and place my last single crochet. If you're following me, you should always end on a single crochet, and you should always start with a double crochet if you cast on the same number of stitches I did. So here's what we have so far. Beautiful. It's starting to come together so beautifully. I think this kind of looks like a little bit of a flower pattern. And all it is just doubles and singles. Isn't that crazy? Just by alternating those stitches, we were able to create a beautiful pattern on this fabric, and they're two very basic, simple stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and, as per usual, measure out my block to see how high I need to make this block. So this sits around 7 inches. If you have previous blocks you've made, you can go ahead and measure against that. That's another good way to make sure that your blocks are going to line up. So I have my single crochet block here, and I can see I've got a lot of work to do. So I'm going to make it as tall as a single crochet block. And boom, I'm done. Fantastic. You can go ahead and pause me if you need to, and then you can catch up. Now, if you've done the standing double crochet on the edges, you'll notice that your edges are super straight. And that's fantastic. That's what you want. If you've done a chain 2, it might look a little lumpy, but that's okay. We can still work with that. Look at this fabric. Isn't it gorgeous? Just from alternating the double crochet and single crochet, we were able to create this gorgeous piece. So now I'm going to cut and weave in my ends. If you need a tutorial on how to do that, I go through that in my Block 1 video, which can be found in the Stitch Sampler Crochet Along playlist. And this is what we have. Perfect. So when we get done making all of our blocks, we'll be able to stitch them together. We'll put them side by side, figure out, what kind of stitch we want to use to seam them together, figure out the position we want to seam them in. You can turn the blocks. You can face them whichever way you want. It really doesn't matter. So this is our block. If you've enjoyed this tutorial and you've learned something amazing, go ahead and give me a like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you can be notified when Block 4 comes out. I release videos every Monday for the Crochet Along, and I hope to see you there. Thanks for joining me. Bye.